You're listening to a download from the outdoorstation.co.uk. Number 556.
Hello and welcome back to the Outdoors Station for another podcast and video interview. As you can tell, I'm wearing my Christmas jumper as it's that time of year where the days are short, the nights are bitter, and outside it can be snow, ice and unpleasant weather. So we'll sit round a warm fire, share drink and food with family and friends, and discuss how we'll get outdoors again when the weather improves. However, there are other people in this world that love it in these particular conditions. In fact, they draw strength from cold water swimming and immersion. Sara Barnes, the author of The Cold Fix, is one of those people, and her book has recently been released by Vertebrate Publishing. Sara is one of a troupe of, well, many people, as you'll hear from reading the book certainly, who enjoy and get a massive amount of benefit from cold water immersion. I spoke to Sara earlier on today, and this is what she had to tell me. Well, Sara, thank you very much indeed for joining us. This is going to be a fascinating conversation on the thrills of the chills of getting cold in your book, The Cold Fix. But obviously there's a bit of history that I think people, listeners and viewers should be aware of as to why you started this cold immersion and the benefits you get from it. So do you think you could start with giving us the backstory of how you ended up in a cold puddle of water?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yes, it started in February 2017 when I had to have a major operation on both my legs. I opted to have it done at the same time. It was called an osteotomy. So both legs were broken and then pins put in and a bone graft put in. It's known as a very, very painful recovery, and it sure was. And I had to be non-weight bearing for 8 weeks. And during those 8 weeks, I was in a wheelchair. And then I found afterwards that the messages from my brain through down my legs had gone, really. So I not only was in pain for a long time afterwards, but I had to relearn how to walk properly. I was shuffling and I didn't realize that's not how you walk. You know, my body had totally forgotten how to walk. So having been a really active person, cycling and running, and doing things like cycling up the Mont Ventoux and all the other cols in France, I suddenly didn't have a physical life. And I live in the Lake District. It's, I can look out of my window, see Skiddaw, and I could go and be up at the top there, within a couple of hours. It's so easy for me. I couldn't do any of that anymore. So I felt I'd lost myself. And it was really hard, a really difficult time emotionally for me, and getting over the physical pain and just what do I do? So then my kids suggested that we went for a dip and a picnic, and it was April. So off we went down to Cromwell. They were in their wetsuits. I think I was that first time, actually, because we've always swum in the river pools and in the lakes and so on, but mostly during the summer. So I had to go, and it was just amazing. I could float, and I didn't need to use my legs, and there was no pain, and I was out there in the outdoors again. So I was hooked. One swim and I was hooked. Yeah,
so how many years ago did this all start for you then? What period of time were we talking about?
The first time I went in was April 2017. So that actually is 6 years ago now. So quite a long time ago, taken that long.
And certainly for an outdoor active person, it must have been incredibly frustrating to have been trapped indoors and, as you say, unable to move due to the recovery. So was the time you went with your children, your daughter, were you what was your movement like? Were you just sort of shuffling and taking a long time to get somewhere, or did you sort of have some sort of ability to walk fairly normally at that stage?
I was semi-weight bearing, so I was allowed to walk on crutches as long as I didn't put the full weight down. So it was it's a 20-minute walk down from the car to the lake, and then it's quite rocky. So I was getting in on my crutches, and then I just kind of fell in, and I discovered that I floated and crutches don't because they got holes in.
Okay. But was that a cold immersion, or was it just a chilly summer's day that we were talking about here?
That's April time. So Cromwick is a very deep lake, and it holds its cold well into June, July. So it probably was about 14 degrees. So by anybody's standards, that's quite cold.
Right.
I'm fairly tough with the cold anyway. So it didn't bother me too much, and I had the wetsuit on. So that was a help. So that wasn't the cold that got me then. That was the feeling of being outdoors again. And I thought, aha, this is possibly how I can get back into the outdoors by being in the water.
Okay. So what happened next then? How do you go from that to it getting colder and colder? Because presumably you did immersions on a fairly regular basis as part of your recovery.
Yes, I think I found that it was the coldness of the water, and we're talking even in the summertime, it might get to 18, 19. It's still cold. It still has an effect on reducing inflammation, reducing pain, and it because it gave me the confidence to be back outdoors again. As I was starting to sort of walk more and do more, I swam more. I met other people who were swimming. And actually 6 years ago, it was still thought to be slightly odd. Cars would still slow down if they saw people swimming in the lake. So it was slightly unusual. And I'd heard about this winter swim, chill swim down in Windermere that took place in February. But in order to do it, you had to be in the water sort of 3 or 4 times a week, right through. So that first winter, 2017-18, I decided with a couple of friends just to swim right through the winter. So we were going 3 or 4 times a week in our swimsuits, and we took each swim at a time. And we just felt so proud of ourselves because every time we were okay, and we took advice from other swimmers, and we read up and we listened to our bodies, and we got ourselves ready to do this chill swim, which I don't think actually happened in the end. But we had got completely hooked by then on the cold. Now the cold was coming into it for me, the actual way it resets you, not just the pain reduction, but it does something psychologically to you. That sounds as if it's odd, but
yeah, well, it's I've read through your book, and I can understand the concentration that going through the process makes you stop and be present in the moment, which it obviously must be focusing a lot on the moment, just because your body's reacting to something that's unfamiliar in some respects. You're putting yourself through quite an unusual situation as regards when you're used to being centrally heated and so on. So your group of friends that you were with, was there somebody leading you to get colder and colder, or was it just purely the sort of social media and the information you were picking up about the benefits of these cold immersions that piqued your curiosity, that made you want to get colder? Or how did it develop from the chill swim, or the idea of the chill swim that you were going to do, into something that was definitely at the next level? That was the bit I couldn't quite grasp in the book.
Okay, I think it was the idea of going to Estonia or Russia. I particularly wanted to go to France and do one of the winter swims, the ice swimming. And I started to read more about that and talk to people like Jamie Monaghan, who is in the book, and a couple of other people who had actually been out there. And they said it was just such a good community. So this is when the idea of community came in as well, and the cold water ice swimming community. are just, there's something about them. There's everybody who's in it seems to have a certain personality, a certain non-judgmental attitude, and you feel that you're part of something bigger because it was taking it beyond the Lake District, beyond the United Kingdom and out into the world again. So we're talking about here probably winter 2018-19. I was doing it more regularly. I was starting to post more on social media, building up friendships beyond where I live, which is a very, very rural backwater. You can go out and not see anybody, which can be quite lonely as well. So it came pain relief, cold, community.
Okay. So this first photograph then, when in the period of time, when did that take place? This is your first winter swim, is that correct?
This is the first time I went on my own into an icy tarn. I had tried the previous winter in February to go up with a group of friends, and it's a good hour's walk up a bridleway, and I couldn't manage it. And we had the beast from the east. It was the week or the weekend of the beast from the east. And I just couldn't really stand up against the wind. I was getting cold. I think I did have a crutch with me or walking poles because I was still in a lot of pain. I had really desperately wanted to get to the top. So the following winter, having worked hard on physiotherapy and all of this stuff, I decided, right, I'm going to do it. I really want to do it. So I went up there on my own. And then this lady appeared and she said, "Are you a swimmer?" And I kind of couldn't deny it because I was in a bathing costume and a bobble hat. And so she stripped down to her undies and she came in with me. And that's what really ignited my joy in the community, and how it's almost they're irrational, but they're also very focused. And it's such a delightful combination. And she just came in with me and we just had this amazing swim in this very, very cold water. There was ice, not just here, because this was the more boggy bit.
And was she a winter an ice swimmer or a cold swimmer, or was she just curious about what you were doing and decided to join you?
Bit of both, really. She was a regular swimmer. She's a regular walker and swimmer. But I think she just thought, I'm going to do it. I want to go in. Partly maybe she thought, this woman shouldn't be going in on her own, but, she just wanted to come in. So it was a spur of the moment thing as well, because she didn't have anything with her apart from walking stuff and a thermos flask and a husband and a dog, so she she wasn't prepared, but she just did it, and it was just wonderful.
Oh, bless her. It's phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah.
So describe to people then, if you would, what does it feel like? What emotions go through your mind and obviously sensations in your body as you start going below what would be classed as sort of chilly water into really, really cold water? When is there a measurement? Is there a temperature that suddenly, right, once you're below 10 degrees, 5 degrees, whatever it may be, if there's a significant thing that happens? Or does everybody go through this slow process of dropping down lower and lower temperature wise each time before they get to a sort of the agreed level of what is classed as being a cold immersion?
I think 10 degrees is quite an interesting temperature. I think that's when people come out of the woodwork on social media, if they like the cold water. Once you get to 10 degrees, the sort of summer swimmers tend to go away. And then for me, when you get down to 7, that's when I really start to notice it. And I think everybody is getting really excited. There is a real buzz when temperatures start going 7 and below. And then there's a particular temperature, 3.7, at which if I'm swimming without neoprene gloves, I lose my hands quite quickly. I probably couldn't swim more than, I don't know, 20 strokes out, 20 back, and I would be losing my hands. Now, if you lose your hands, they don't drop off. You just lose all feeling. They become claws. A, you can't swim properly, and B, you can't get yourself dressed. So actually we're talking getting into, serious problems potentially, because you've got to be able to get yourself dressed and get in your car, start the engine, start warming up. You've got to be able to pour a drink and so on. So it goes by degrees once you get to 7. 6 is an insignificant number. You're waiting at 7 to get down to 5, and then at 5 you're really wanting to get down to like 4 and then sub 4. 5 is the official ice swimming temperature, below 5. But really everybody wants to be in 0 degrees.
Wow. And you're obviously very specific about your temperature rating. Do you carry a thermometer with you and gauge the temperature of the water beforehand, or is it rule of thumb?
It's because I noticed when somebody did have a thermometer once in Bassenthwaite Lake, I noticed, and my hands were like claws, and I couldn't, if I went like that, I couldn't feel them against each other. And she'd measured it at 3.7, and I thought, that's the temperature. For me, that's my temperature when I need the gloves on, or I need to keep my hands out of the water, right, to keep safe.
And what about the actual experience your body and mind go through? Could you vocalize that at all, about how it feels and the sensations you go through as you immerse yourself slowly into colder and colder water?
It sometimes doesn't feel any colder. It doesn't, when it's like below 5, it doesn't feel any colder. You notice the difference. You swear more, you're more loud and more vocal about it at sort of 10 down to 7 to 6. When it gets below 5, it's like you really feel you have to focus. I feel it on my skin, but I sense it in my mind and in my body. It is hard to put into words, but it's so cold that you no longer ask yourself why you're doing it. You no longer can swear. You are stilled. You are completely, your brain is put on hold. All you're doing is trying to just really sense every tiny little, feeling, really, every little sensation. So yes, that was in Norway on New Year's Eve last year. And I was happy. I was so happy. I wasn't warm. I still knew it was cold. And I knew I hadn't done everything I wanted to do until I had dunked down into it, because it didn't feel horribly cold. Sometimes when it's 7 degrees and wet and windy, it feels far nastier than a day like that, where it's just still. And so all your emotions and everything within you are stilled. And it's this magic calm, where, the tiniest little thing you can feel and sense and hear and smell. Smell's very important at different temperatures as well.
Okay, well, I was just going to run the bit of video that you sent me with the sort of got the complete story on, from your injury through to some of the experiences, and then we'll come on to some of the other pictures where you talk about your experiences when you've been with others. If you'd like to just talk us through this little film.
Okay, so this is in the very early days after the operation I had, where I was in my bedroom for 8 weeks, using a wheelchair, using a banana board to get from wheelchair onto anything, really. And it was just funny. It was a funny time. And those are the wounds, 50 staples. And then I started walking again on crutches. You can see how thin my legs got. and then just started to get back outside. And I think you can see in my face and in my demeanour that I'm in my happy place completely. Having my physical self taken away from me, it just ate me up inside. It destroyed me nearly. And I think you have to rebuild your body confidence as well. I got back to cycling, which had been my passion. That was my contract for the book, The Cold Fix. And then I used to hate deep water. I couldn't jump off things. So I made myself face a lot of fears during this time because it stopped me being scared of the future.
Well, congratulations. It certainly is quite a journey, isn't it? Now, in the book, you have talked about the community, obviously, and the people you met and the sort of gatherings and how there are a whole variety of different characters. You've sent me some pictures, which I'm going to go through at the moment in some sort of random order. But perhaps you would like to talk us through some of the people on here and some of the experiences that you've had, because you've been to many different countries. Some people are well known, I understand, and other people's are just sort of enthusiasts, but not particularly famous within the circles. And you seem to have tried everything that you wanted to try and set out for yourself, the immersions, the complete dunks and so on. And obviously we've got the cold water bath, and we'll finish on that, if we may, through the pictures. So moving on from this one.
So this is when I went to Norway and really got into the ice. This was what I wanted, was the ice and learning about it. And I didn't realize it was sharp. So you can be chopping away at it, trying to keep your balance. And then you have to be aware that you've got an axe and you've got ice, which is really sharp. So I had a lot of scratches and wounds and a lot of learning to do, really. This is trying to write a bit harder. I went down to the south of France and met Claudia, who swims in the Mediterranean and up in the mountains. So there was actual ice there in that water, and it was 4 degrees. And then this is Lilu, who I swim with in the Lake District, who never feels the cold. She doesn't know when to get out because she just doesn't feel the cold. But she absolutely loves it. And then this is my Japanese bathtub that I have outside my bedroom. And I got that 2 years ago now. So you can see, I can see the mountains from my house, which was torture when I couldn't get there. So this froze over this winter. It has frozen over this winter again. So I can literally go and sit in my own ice hole outside my bedroom, which is really safe.
And I presume that's your regular resting place that you mentioned in the book. Now you've got this, so you don't have to obviously go to various places. You can just nip straight outside and do this. Now, it's a matter of interest when you're doing this. When I haven't done anything similar to what you're talking about, but when I've certainly had cold immersions in cold streams, it's usually after I've got warm. So I might go for a run first and then immerse myself, or do some yoga or whatever it may be. As part of the routine that you do, obviously, if you're walking up a mountain, you're going to get warm in the process, and traveling to various places. But is it normal to get warm first in some sort of physical way before you immerse yourself? Or like with the bath, the tub you've got at your house now, do you not get warm? Do you just get out of bed and go straight in, as it were?
I tend to do some yoga first so that I've loosened up, and then I'll go and sit in it. It is really lovely to go for a walk first, and if your legs are hurting, to get in that because the pain goes away. But if I'm up by a mountain tarn, what I tend to do is stand in my swimming costume just for a minute or so and prepare my body for the cold, because it seems really unfair when it's kind of hot and sweaty, and you are a long way from help up there. I let the cold air get to my body. I let the sweat from my backpack kind of go away. This is the lady up in Scotland. a lady spent lockdown in her wheelie bin every day. She used to go and sit in her wheelie bin. She lives in Birmingham area, and this was her saviour. She actually took it on as a lover, and her husband was quite happy for that, and he used to take out her towel and a cup of coffee and make sure she went out there every day. And it was a beautiful relationship, which came to an end after lockdown, and she was forced to go back out to the lake. But I believe she's using her wheelie bin again now, because again, it's like my tub. It's convenient, it's predictable, it's safe, and it's accessible. This is Bassen's Weight, and this is Alice, who's also in the book. And we meet, she'll get up and we'll go early mornings, and it's a beautiful place for sunrise. And we just chatter away. And it's just a lovely thing to do with friends, just one friend, couple of friends.
Do most people that you've met and that you obviously bring into the book as well, have many of them come from requiring some aid to recover from some sort of medical or operation situation, or have they come to it on a different route? You know, the reason they're actually doing it, is it for other reasons apart from sort of medical benefits?
Absolutely. This is what I found with everybody I interviewed. It was a totally different reason why they love the cold. For Ellie, who's in Norway, that's her house in the background. She literally can walk down there and just plop into the fjord. She does it for migraines. She gets really severe ones, so it's the only thing that helps her. But she actually does it because it makes her feel happy as well. This is Claudia again down, and she does it because it brings her close to nature. And this is Rory Southworth, who measures everything, absolutely everything. And he has done various projects like the Dark Tarns project, where he will swim in the high tarns, run up there, swim in the high tarns. He's always on his own because he feels safer, because he sets everything up precisely to suit him. He does it because he is constantly competing against himself, time, distance, cold, etc. But he initially started it because he had an ankle injury, and he felt that it would be something he could do while he wasn't running. But mostly, this is me trying out a wheelie bin. And that's amazing because I'm 5'10". Getting in's fine, but getting out was really quite tricky at times. And I think my son thought I was gone completely bonkers. But again, this is, I have a fear of deep water, and this is Vobster, which is down in the southwest. This is Tara, one of my thinkers, and she pushed me in, which actually was the best thing she could have done, because I didn't have to overthink it. I just went in, and it's incredibly deep. But I was fine. I really surprised myself. And I think you can overcome your fears by just not overthinking them, and just doing it.
Yeah. And what about the actual quality of the waters that you're swimming in as well? Obviously there is that part of the health and safety to consider is water quality itself, as opposed to the temperature of the water. Is there any reason that you've been concerned about what you've been swimming in?
Sometimes in the Lake District we get blue-green algae, so that doesn't actually harm us particularly. But it can make you feel sick, and it's not particularly pleasant to swim in. So the water quality, I don't get too worried about it. I think I'm very lucky in that everywhere I go up here in the lakes is pretty clean. I know there's a lot of issues with Windermere potentially at the moment, but I've never been worried about it there. No.
Okay, well, we've certainly, I think, whetted, you see what I did there? Whetted people's appetite to know more about the book, and we'll come on to the book details in a moment. But taking that safety issue a stage further, I'm sure most people would want to know how safe it is as a hobby or a pastime, and what you might have to consider if you wanted to start from somewhere. If somebody said, right, okay, this sounds like a thing for me to help me with my recovery, or I'm curious to explore it further, what's the bare minimum you would suggest people do and consider? How do they go about it? Get into a social group first, or head out on the hills themselves?
I would strongly recommend going with a small group. Maybe not a large group, because you could get lost amongst it. You need to have one person who is experienced and go with them, learn from them. I see nothing wrong in going on your own. And actually, if you're on your own, you tend to double the sort of precautions you take anyway, and you can do things at your own pace. But certainly, if you've not really done it before, I would go with a small group or a swim guide, a trained, qualified swim guide, and read up about it, talk to people, and put together your own little essential kit that you always take with you, such as a hot drink, layers of clothing. You don't have to have fancy dry robes and fancy rucksacks or anything, but a hot drink, yes, definitely, and layers to put on afterwards, and a hat to keep your head warm. Yeah.
So is there a bare minimum of equipment that people, I mean, is it an expensive hobby to get into? Because in the book you mentioned certain gloves and certain booties and different things like that. Would you advise people starting with a wetsuit just to aid them, or does that not make any difference really?
I wouldn't start with a wetsuit. If your plan is to swim skins, which is what it's called if you're just in a swimsuit, then start swimming skins. And what really helps is to have some sort of swim shoes, and they could be neoprene, so you're keeping your feet warm, or they could just be the cheap sort of toy shop, Amazon swim shoes. Because if your feet are painful on rocks or whatever, that's just going to add to the pain. So take that away, get some swim shoes, lightweight ones, not your trainers. You don't need a big cloak. Get a microfiber changing robe thing that you can just kind of pull down over you. So that stops the wind on you straight away. Some kind of rucksack, hot drink. If you're starting at this time of year, you can get neoprene swim gloves from the dreaded Amazon really quite reasonably. You don't have to go for the brand names, just anything that's going to keep your hands warm. And I would strongly advise not actually swimming. I would just say get in the water, stand in the water, sit down in it. I quite often go to the lake, and because I go on my own a lot, I'm not going to swim out into the middle on my own. I'm not, I'm a confident swimmer, but not confident about doing that. I just go in and I take my cup of tea and I just sit in the water kind of up to my waist and just enjoy being outside.
Is there any need to actually totally immerse, or is there, do you get as much from it from sitting in the water to having it up to your neck to actually immersing?
There's something which people laugh when I talk about it, but it's the back of your neck. It is the mammalian gland. It's the vagus nerve. And if you can get that immersed, you will get colder again. So it kind of will increase the effect on you. So everybody says get your heart in. You don't have to have your hands in. The ladies in Scandinavia, you see them all sitting in the water with their hands out and hats on, So I lie in the water sometimes. I very often get my head wet as well. So if I find a beck, mountain stream with a waterfall, my aim is to get my head in that waterfall, because for me, that complete immersion, but with that rushing oxygenated water on your head, just is like such a buzz. It's just amazing.
Well, if people want to find out more about your activities and follow you, there's obviously the book, which we'll come on to in a second, where to get that from, and which is from Vertebrate Publishing, of course. But there is your extensive Instagram, Bumble Barnes, which has got a whole variety of pictures and video clips on it, I can see here, that will entertain people. And I understand from what you were saying earlier on that quite a few people are finding you via the Instagram, as they're obviously exploring the whole concept of a cold fix.
Yes. I try to tell stories on that. I don't tend to give advice. I just say how it makes me feel, or how I've gone and done something and how I've found it and how it's made me feel. You can see I go and find waterfalls. I've been doing a lot about the cold fix recently, but and that's a barrel that was given to me, and it just feels fabulous if you overfill it and then it all just flows out. There's something so childish about making all that water go everywhere.
And have a nice big mug of tea there next to you by the looks of it.
Oh, yes, that's my mug, yep. It's just the people I meet. I like to do posts about the people I've met and just tell little stories rather than just say, yeah, I met so-and-so who went for a swim. I use it as a testing out my own writing skills as well.
Excellent. Well, people obviously would like to read the book, I'm sure. So let's just have a look where they can get that from. Of course, they can get that from Ventura Publishing, and the dreaded Amazon, as you said yourself, is another place. And they can pick it up in all sorts of formats, hardback, softback, and good old Kindle as well. So Sarah, it's been lovely talking to you. Now, it's an, as I say, not a familiar subject for me, but of all the things I could have asked you about this particular subject and your book, what should I have asked you?
I think what we didn't touch on was why I divided it up into thinkers, warriors, and mothers. And then nobody has ever asked me which one of those is my predominant character trait.
Okay, fire away then.
Well, I divided it up into these characters because I feel those are my main characteristics. And after the operation, I felt completely broken, and I wanted to find a way of kind of putting myself back together again. So by going out into the community, that's how I thought I would manage it. And I reckoned that one way to choose people was to divide them up. So I thought, right, who do I think are the thinkers? Who predominantly is an overthinker or plans stuff? Who's a warrior? Who do I see as, championing other people, etc. So that's how I divided it. And I think predominantly I'm a mother. I do have my own children, but I also tend to mother people. I want to look after people. And I often do that to the detriment of not looking after myself. But it just is my natural inclination is to want people to feel safe and looked after. And then I'm also a bit of a warrior. These little wounds on my face are not to do with fighting the ice. It's some minor surgery I've had recently, not a facelift. But I'm a panther as well. I really enjoy, well, I never had any body confidence, but I've gained it now from doing this swimming and hanging around in my bathing costume. You just gain body confidence. You have to, if you're going to do films of yourself. So those, I'm not a thinker particularly. I'm not an overthinker. But so my predominant ones are mother, warrior, and panther, I would say. But the other ones are there within me as well, like the child and so on.
Well, congratulations. Well, and definitely congratulations on the book as well. It's a very fascinating read, and certainly does give you lots of thought about the benefits, not just the health benefits, but also the focusing and the mental benefits as well of being present in the moment, which is obviously quite a popular topic at the moment. So thanks very much indeed for your time, and hopefully we will speak to you again when you have your next book.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Well, my thanks to Sarah for sharing her story and also explaining the benefits she's found from cold water immersion and certainly the way that it aided her recovery. If you're interested in knowing more about this subject, I'll put all the links to everything on the show notes so you can follow up yourself her Instagram page and watch and listen to other stories that she shares there. There's certainly plenty of conversation in the book with other people around Europe and the benefits they have felt from cold water immersion, and certainly some interesting stories about how they break the ice with a chainsaw. That's serious immersion. So folks, if that is of interest to you, then do take care. Do make sure you take a friend and plenty of warm clothing and take it steady and get some good advice. And if it doesn't interest you, do stay warm and toasty this winter time. Until next time, folks, take care whatever you do, and bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To hear or see more from our extensive free library, please visit theoutdoorstation.co.uk.